see you managed to screw your head back on. How did you manage that? Well, you know what? I hope you're happy, because I'm finally getting to your fucking movies. Yes, I know, it's my favorite. But you had to wait your turn. You just don't listen, do you? Stop. Don't make me call Busta Rhymes. I will do it. I will call Busta Rhymes. He'll come in here and he'll kick your ass again. No, I couldn't get Dr. Loomis. Do I look like I'm fucking rich? And besides, Donald Pleasant's dead. How am I supposed to raise him from the grave? You know what? You're just gonna have to go without. Don't look at me that way, you fucking head. I don't care if you got a body or not, you're still a fucking head. What's going on, everybody? This is BroncoJuggalo, and we are finally here, guys. We are at my favorite horror movie of all time, and my second favorite movie of all time. We are at the one and only original 1978 classic, John Carpenter's Halloween. I'm still feeling like crap, guys, but I need to get this video out. I've been promising it since last week, and I haven't gotten to it. There is just so much to say about this film. So much that has already been said about this film. But let's just start it off like I do a lot of my reviews. I'm going to tell you who's in it. I'm going to give you a synopsis. Then I'm going to tell you my pros and cons and what I think of this movie. So, jumping right in with our director, of course, John Carpenter, starring Nick Castle as The Shape. He wasn't known as Michael Myers. He was called Michael Myers in the movie, but he was still just known as The Shape. Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and the late, great Donald Pleasance as Dr. Samuel Loomis. This is, in my opinion, one of the greatest films ever made. It should be in the top 10 films of all time, greatest films of all time. It is not only the best horror movie ever made, and yes, I said that. Greatest horror film ever. Quote me on that, and if you disagree, you're flat out wrong. Usually I'm like, oh yeah, everybody's got an opinion. No, this time you're just wrong. Halloween is a great film. It is the perfect horror movie. This is the movie that every single slasher and a lot of other horror films from then till now have been based on. I'm not talking about story, I'm talking about the way they're done. This is the prototype for the slasher film. You would not have Nightmare on Elm Street. You would not have Friday the 13th. You would not have Scream. You would not have Wrong Turn. You would not have any of those films if it wasn't for this movie right here. In 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers stabs and murders his sister Judith. Fast forwarding 15 years later to 1978, Michael escapes the sanitarium and returns to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois to finish what he started all those years ago. He starts targeting babysitters, focusing his attention on one Laurie Strode, a 17-year-old babysitter who is yet to know that this is going to be her night from hell that will shape and define the rest of her life. So, a few interesting facts here, guys, is this movie was at once called The Babysitter Murders. Before they had the title Halloween, it was called The Babysitter Murders. You'd be shocked how many people don't know that aren't hardcore fans. This film was also done for $325,000. The original budget of the film was $300,000. But Mustafa Akkad was able to get another $25,000. Mustafa Akkad is the producer. Was able to get another $25,000 so they could secure Donald Pleasance to star in the film. $325,000, and this movie went on to make $70 million, which I know by today's standards is not a lot, but in 1978, that was amazing. This film cemented what is now a global franchise and cemented a legacy that has lasted for 40 years. We have a new film coming out here in 2018, also just called Halloween. There was a remake series done in 2007 with Rob Zombie helming it. And yes, we'll get to those films too, and boy, do I have some opinions on those. The global market for Halloween has spawned merchandise, movies, books, comic books, just about everything you can imagine. It has had countless imitators, countless ripoffs, and countless tributes, all attributed to it. And it is yet to win a single award, for which is definitely a downfall. As always, in the Academy, horror films get a snub, which is really, really sad, seeing as how some of these movies are some of the best ever made. The Halloween franchise that this one movie spawned will go on to make hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. In a 40-year lifespan, it has done extremely well. There are legions of fans all over the world, and we owe it all to John Carpenter and to Deborah Hill and Mustafa Akkad. So let's get into pros and cons, guys. I'm going to start with my cons. As much as I love this movie, there is no cons. Sorry. I've heard many people say, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that. You know what? I love everything in this movie. There are no cons in this film to me. Some people will say, well, what about the fact that you can see a palm tree in the distance, or a palm tree over in that corner of the shot? Or you can see John Carpenter's cigarette smoke coming through the bush as he directs Nick Castle, who plays Michael Myers. So what? So what? First off, they couldn't afford to film this movie in Illinois, so they had to film it in California in the summer. You ask me, one little palm tree can be easily explained away, or easily, overlooked. The smoke coming out from between the bushes, I never even noticed until somebody pointed it out. So, the people that call those flaws in a film, I call that the film's charm. Those are people that just want to nitpick every little thing and can't be satisfied or happy unless they have something to complain about. So we're going to start at the beginning with the pros, guys, and my first pro is that opening credit sequence. We're talking about the Halloween logo next to the pumpkin with the jack-o'-lantern with the iconic score of John Carpenter, which is another con I'll get to here in a little bit. I absolutely love the credits. Everything about this movie is just great. It's perfect. I love the way the credits look. They look so amazing. I love the opening shot. Common misconception is that the opening shot was done in one take. And unfortunately, though, while it does help with the mystique of the film, that is an incorrect assumption. It was done in a couple takes because they had no choice, because of getting around things like that. But what they did is the cameraman, they actually built a harness and put the camera on him, and he just walked through the entire area and did everything. Now, as I said, there are some cuts, and I heard somewhere that somebody said there was only 3. But there are some cuts at certain places that are so seamless you don't even notice them. Aside from the title sequence and that opening shot, the very first thing you notice is the score, the music, done by John Carpenter. It is probably the most recognizable piece of music outside of Star Wars, as far as movie music goes. There is no other tune more recognizable than the Halloween theme. A few simple chords on the piano, and he had a masterpiece on his hands. When he first screened this movie, he screened it without the music. And people really weren't into it. They thought it lacked tension, they thought it lacked drama, they thought it lacked scare. When he placed that iconic score over it, and he submitted it back to the same test audience, they were blown away, and they were freaked out. Every part of it, this movie, works together as one. Just like all the cast worked together as one. And that is something that I found was amazing. I've watched documentaries on this movie countless times, and I found out that everybody helped out in this film. The actors didn't just stay in their trailers, they helped with everything. They helped with production. They had to make leaves to make it look like it was fall. And they had to spread those leaves out, and then at the end of each take, they would have to pick them all back up again. And all of the cast members helped with that. My next pro is the acting in the film. We have the great Donald Pleasance. We have Jamie Lee Curtis. We have Nick Castle, who gives a amazing performance as Michael Myers. And then we have a slew of surrounding characters who I've heard some people say they don't like their acting. I love their acting. I thought it was great. And that leads me into my next pro, and that's the dialogue. A lot of people say that the acting of one of the actresses is kind of bad because she's always saying the word totally. I love that. All of the girls' dialogues in this film, the three babysitters' dialogues as they're talking to each other, as they're on the phone, was all written by Deborah Hill, who isn't much older than they were at the time, and she knew how teenage girls at the time talked. And she wrote their dialogue specifically just for them. The word totally was a pretty popular word back then. Lots of girls used it, and that's just the way it was. So, people that want to nitpick that and say, oh, it wasn't that great, I think Jamie Lee Curtis did an excellent job, being that it was her first major film. I loved their look. I loved their acting. I loved their dialogue. Everything about this movie is great. You can really see the range of Jamie Lee Curtis when she's playing the soft-spoken shy girl, not the scared girl or the one fighting to survive. When she plays that soft-spoken shy girl, when she's talking with her friends on the phone, talking about the guy she likes, those are the times where you can really see the range of Jamie Lee Curtis and what is to come from her in the future. One of my biggest pros in this film, and as much as I love part 2, and I love the brother-sister storyline, and that will always remain canon to me. No matter how much they change in this new film, it will always be that way because that was the original story. Maybe not for the first film, but for the second film, and it's been that way for 40 years. I don't understand how you can just say that no longer happened. But whatever. We'll get to the new film when it gets here, and I'm praying it'll be great. I'm very excited to see it. I love the story of this film. Simple plot, simple premise, and it has the basis that evil will not die, cannot die. Our killer is completely evil. There is no rhyme or reason for what he does. They did not give him a rhyme or reason. He killed his sister one day after being a supposedly normal kid. He didn't have a fucked up childhood or raised by hillbilly parents or none of that. You know what? Sorry. We'll get into that in the Rob Zombie films. He was a normal, upper middle class suburban kid who had no reason to do the things he did. And in the therapy sessions they had with him, they couldn't find a reason for anything he did. He was just purely and simply evil. Whether that was a instant change, whether he snapped, whether he was demon-possessed, all these theories have been thrown out over time, none of which we have figured out why. And that is the mystique of Michael Myers. That is what makes him superior. Well, maybe not superior. Well, in my opinion, superior. But that is what makes him different than any other slasher icon, is you did not know what was going on behind those eyes. The blackest eyes. The devil's eyes. I absolutely love this film, guys. It is so amazing to me. Once I saw Halloween, I never went back. Halloween was instantly my favorite horror movie of all time, and is still one of only 3 horror movies that can get a chill and a scare out of me. Not a jump scare, not a I'm going to cry and not watch the movie scare. But as I watch this film, and especially after I watch the film, I truly think about the premise. And I realize how realistic it is and how frightening that is. And that just freaks me out to no end. I want to give a huge tip of the hat to Mr. Dean Cundy, the cinematographer on this film, who made this film look like no other film seen before it. The way he lit it, the way he did everything, the way the shots were set up with him and John Carpenter was just amazing. A great example of the cinematography is Laurie is standing in the doorway of a closet. And she's, upset and she's frightened. and all of a sudden Michael's face just appears out of the darkness. So perfectly lit, so well done. It was just so amazing that it just moved you inside. It made you feel afraid, like you were there and you were about to die. I absolutely love everything Dean Cundey and John Carpenter did on this film. Another big pro for me in this movie was there was no blood. Not really. There was a little bit here and there, but in the kills, when Michael is killing people, you didn't see the blood. You didn't see a lot of gore and carnage. Everything was done in a pull away or a cutaway. And that might bother me in other films, but not here, because here, the story and the tension and the drama was so real and so believable, and you were already so hyped up and so scared that your imagination went into double, triple overtime, and it put in blood and gore that the screen never even could have. And that was even more frightening. Lots of films have tried to emulate that. None have succeeded. As the franchise went on, it got a bit bloodier, a bit gorier, and that's fine too. I love that stuff. But the way they did in this movie was just so perfect and looked so good. And everything in your mind enhanced this film. Guys, I could go on talking about this movie for hours. But I'm not going to. I'm going to cut it off here. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this review. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. I apologize for my condition. I'm not feeling well. And I'll probably end up doing this again at some point in the future. Just so that way I know that I gave it everything I could. Anyways, this is BroncoJuggalo saying thank you. Mustafa Akkad, rest in peace. Thank you, Donald Pleasance, rest in peace. Thank you, John Carpenter. Thank you, Jamie Lee Curtis. Thank you, Deborah Hill. Thank you, Dean Cundey. Thank you to everybody that worked on this film and gave me these awesome, great memories. This awesome film that I can enjoy forever. And just for changing my life. This is BroncoJuggalo saying, peace out, y'all.